Bill Sweeney. Oh, Bill. When are we going to stop this nonsense and just start fucking podcasting again? You horse's ass. We need to fucking start up some shit again, man. What the fuck? Oh, balls. Anyway, listen, I fucking love you, all right? I drank a lot. In case you haven't noticed. Oh, man. You know, I'm never going to drink vermouth again. Anyway, listen. Oh, shit. Oh, Bill. Hey, Bill, listen. You can go fuck yourself. Fuck Bob, too, all right? Fuck him. I miss you guys. I love you. Rock and fucking roll.
You're listening to the Wicked Theory Podcast.
We're very happy to have you back, even for a short visit.
And here we go.
You thought you got rid of me. No. It's not that easy, folks. I'm sorry, but it's not. This is the Wicked Theory Podcast. My name is still Bill Sweeney. And yes, it's been a little bit since you've heard me. What could drag me out of the woodwork? What could get me out of my doldrums and put me into a chair? I don't know. Maybe it's a movie that came out. Maybe it's a friend calling me up and being like, can we just fucking record something? Can we just get together? Can we just hang out? I haven't seen you in a long time. So I said, okay. All right. So with that, I think now is a great time. This episode, we're going to do a review of Whitewater Summer, the Kevin Bacon film, all about camping and canoeing and whitewater rafting and breaking legs on a mountaintop somewhere. Ladies and gentlemen, my buddy and yours, Jason Chickalese.
Yeah, bitch. Fuck, ass, cock, whore.
Jeez.
Yeah, right out of the gate.
It's like old times. Nothing has changed.
Whitewater Summer, baby.
Yeah, baby. Whitewater Summer. That's it. We're going to get deep on that.
Yeah,
We're
Kevin
go deep.
Bacon as a sadist.
Oh, man. I don't know if he's a sadist as much as he's a giant fucking asshole in that movie.
Right. Well, I think that was the description on the VHS box when you rented it in 1987.
That was their nice way of putting it.
He's a sadist.
Sadist. He's a douche.
Big time.
He's a douche in a canoe.
How you doing, Bill?
I'm doing all right, Jay.
Been a while.
It has been a while.
You know, this goes back to a drunken night I had.
Whoa.
Sometime in July. And I was really, like, tuned up.
Yeah.
And I recorded myself. And in the plan was to send it to you.
What were you doing in this recording?
Is
it video or audio?
It was an audio.
Oh, thank God.
It was an audio.
Because I pictured something
and
really...
it's me laughing uncontrollably and really, like, juiced up. And saying, Bill, you horse's ass, when are we going to, start the mics again? When are we going to stop the horseradish?
I thought we were friends.
Exactly.
I thought, like, you liked me.
But I think I was going more towards, like, the original pod. Like what we used to do. Because we were like the Beatles, man, and now we're all broken up. And
you wanted to send me a voicemail?
So you know what? Maybe I'll send it to you.
So no, it's kind of like, I fucking hate you. You're a fucking jerk off. Why don't you call anymore? You don't write. You don't text. Why is everybody gonna come find you?
Right. Something like that.
It's the truth, though.
No, it was a lot funnier, I thought.
I just really wanted to use the
With your
megaphone.
99-cent store, Dollar General megaphone.
Hey, let me tell you, this thing, $12.
$12?
Guess how much the batteries? $12.
$40.
The whole thing comes to like, $30 because of the batteries.
But yeah, man. So I missed you.
Well, I missed you too, man.
And,
I missed you too.
I'm here because, for the most part, to catch up.
And just giant Kevin Bacon fan.
And Whitewater Summer came out.
Whitewater Summer 2.
On Blu-ray.
I want the follow.
I'm going to be in Whitewater Summer 2.
You're going to be the new counselor?
Yeah, I'm going to be the new,
And now Kevin Bacon's character has kids.
Right.
And he lets his kids go.
Yeah, and I fucked them up.
Right. But he's following from the bushes. And he's like, I don't know, man. This guy seems like he's doing the right thing. Because in his sadistic mind, the fucked up shit you're doing, it's going to toughen him up.
Well, he's killed off screen because we can't afford him. So it opens up with just the guy's legs on the ground.
There's going to be some rewrites on this?
Yeah. By Jason John Chicalise.
So,
so a big film opened this weekend.
Well, here, let me get a couple things out of the way, a little bit.
Okay.
I will set this up by saying that, like, I felt like this is a movie that, look, I'm going to switch up the formats on this show.
Sure.
So this might be like one of the last episodes before I do that. And I feel like us talking about this movie, because we talked about it a lot, because you did extra work on it.
Oh, yeah.
And so this is a kind of a thing that's going to help kind of maybe close a certain chapter in this podcast a little bit.
Right. We'll save it for later. There's a couple of things I'll...
Yeah. We're going to get to it all.
Yep.
But this is one of the things I wanted to kind of get into up front.
Oh, yeah.
So what people do need to know, first of all, Jay, is that I have been saying here and there that the podcast was going to come back in October. Mm-hmm. But I don't think so. I think I'm going to push it out to November 11th.
The new format.
Yeah. Okay. And I'm going to give it a hard date and say November 11th. That's when the new Wicked Theory podcast will drop. It won't be too crazy different. But, it's going to be a little bit more one-on-one with people. Pop culture stuff will come up. It will happen. But, I'm looking at it like, here's the tagline. New format, same rules, just funnier, we hope.
Okay. Right.
Same rules. It's no sports, no politics, no math. And,
well, I stopped drinking.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yep. Exactly.
I just want to say, most guys, when they pull out like when they have their backpack with them, most guys I think they pull out like maybe a laptop, which you did, or like some running shoes, or like
not the bottle of Black Label I just bought.
No. Is there any other hooch in that bag?
There might be, yeah.
Is it like a mobile bar setup?
There might be, yeah.
Is there a shaker and a strainer in there, too?
Yeah. I'm like that big St. Bernard with the barrel around his neck. Yes. He's got like a whole martini.
He opens it up.
Yeah.
It opens up in half, and it's like a little bartender setup in there.
Which in the cartoons always drove me nuts because he always poured himself the martini.
Yeah, that was the best bit.
And not the victim.
They go through the whole bit. He's shaking it. He's doing the whole thing. He's like, I'm going to bring it back to life. I see that you're blue. You're frozen. Yeah. Then makes it nice. Pours. Goop. Closes it all up.
It leaves.
Great.
Yeah. No, I'm still drinking.
Okay.
It was only a joke.
Good. It was only a joke, kid. He's not a quitter. No. But it is good to see you.
Thank you.
And
good to be seen.
Let's play a little catch up. We did that last time. When you popped around here, and just maybe promote a little bit of stuff that you're doing.
Yeah, I'm still acting. I'm still doing it. Mm-hmm. Things are starting to heat. I got a couple of really good projects lined up.
Nice.
One called Hire a Liar, which we're in very, very early pre-production on it. But it's about a group of con artists who develop a small business called Hire a Liar. You hire them for alibis, kind of like a private investigator kind of a thing. And this is a script by John Michaels, who wrote the movie I just finished, Jay Mancini, as a producer on. If you guys could go to my IMDb page, because I got one. And you'll see it in there. So we're just starting pre-production on that. I will be in it. I'm playing Detective Firmino, who's a shitbag cop.
Kind of sounds like a shitbag
Yeah,
cop.
shitbag
Kind of
cop.
sounds like a shitbag cop name.
Another guy, Mike Carr. He's in Jay Mancini. He'll be in it. But we're still casting right now.
Okay.
So that I'm looking forward to that. Jay Mancini was just submitted to Sundance, Tribeca,
Nice.
and a couple of film festivals. So I'm happy about that. I wish it the best. But as far as that's concerned, that's just sit around and wait and see what happens.
Yeah, that's how that goes.
And I'm working for a buddy of mine, Tom. He does a couple of new non-union productions. He did a film called, his name is Tom Ryan. He did a film called Theater of Terror. It's an anthology horror movie.
I like the title.
And he got a lot of good feedback from it. So he's doing another one. I don't know if he's doing an anthology again, but he's definitely doing a short film called Robot.
Okay.
And I'm playing an abusive dad.
Oh man, I was waiting for you to be like, I'm playing the robot.
So I don't want to get into it too much because I know that he wants to keep that one kind of private. But it's just proof that I'm working.
Can I pitch you Robo J? Can I come up with a pitch for that? You'll sit through it.
Robo Wop.
Robo Wop. Is that like a thing already?
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, like a parody T-shirt or something that came out in the '90s.
It was just
It sounds like it.
I've been saying Wopland for years instead of Copland.
Fair enough. Fair.
So that was just that's a comedy first.
As an Italian American, you're allowed to do that.
Yes, I can. Robo Wop.
Robo.
Hashtag Robo Wop.
And instead of Detroit, it's Newark.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The whole bit.
Same soup, but my beard is sticking out.
Yeah, but he can't be a cop. He can't be a cop. Like, what kind of job?
He's a hitman. He's a hitman.
He's a robo hitman.
Yeah.
Oh, man, I want it to be lower key.
If Lloyd Kaufman of Trauma were here,
oh, man,
that would be a thing.
That would be it.
Shit, you know what? That's too good. Before you post this, let me...
You're gonna write that up real quick and send it out? Okay. Crack open the first draft.
Hey, there was Wolf Cop, right? Remember that?
Yeah. Hey, look, little tongue-in-cheek, the whole bit. I see it.
Got some good feedback.
I can see it. The name might have to change, but we'll see what we can do.
Right. And before I get to the big one on acting that we are going to talk about later, his name is Jason. I know Wesley Ryan Gaskins,
yes,
as well as a couple of people that I knew. I didn't know donated until they all got their perks. In the mail.
Okay.
So his name is Jason. Is still a thing. We're actually shooting a scene next week.
Nice.
With the rest of photography going to happen between January and April of next year, and we're gunning for a Halloween release next year.
Nice.
So, and I'm comfortable with that time frame. So we're not rushing and
but still moving.
Pro bono.
Is there, where can people
his
go
name
to?
His name is Jason, has a Facebook page. It's the same one that I plugged on the show before. Mm-hmm. There is a Facebook fundraiser going on over there. We're shooting with Ron Milkey, who played Officer Dorf in the first Friday the 13th film.
Nice.
He's the motorcycle cop that's giving all those guys shit.
Yeah.
So the plan is to actually shoot this scene, edit it down for a new trailer, and try to get more funding.
Nice.
So his name is Jason. There's a Facebook, or you can find me on Facebook at my acting page, which is Jason John Chickalese, and you'll see it there.
Yeah, there you go, kids.
So that's all I've been up to. Other than that, it's been a kind of a slow summer movie watching.
Yeah, you know what? I was thinking about this, right? This summer for movies was like, sure, there was some big stuff, but usually every summer is like just nothing but big stuff.
Right. I mean, it was a little odd. I didn't get. I saw some stuff. Mm-hmm. But I didn't get a chance to see the stuff I usually would go and see, like,
everything.
Ed does everything.
That's true. Okay, so 60%.
Not even because I've been busy.
It does. Well, not now, but normally.
Yeah.
Like I feel like you were going every week.
Right.
There would always be kind of like something.
Right.
Because if you look at the rundown every week, there's usually like 4 or 5 kind of genres that they're hitting, and there's always probably something in there for you.
Well, in 2017, 2018, when we were doing this, I was going like twice a week.
Yeah, that was a good run for the genre.
Not Ed numbers.
Fuck Ed
you know
numbers.
What I mean? Because I didn't see the reissue of Remains of the Day. I didn't go and do that.
Yeah.
But
I mean, Dead Ringers maybe.
But when I was last on the show, which was like fucking 6 months ago.
Yeah, it was a while.
We did go over Brightburn, and we did go over Endgame and Godzilla, which I kind of liked, and then I rewatched it. I'm like, yeah, they kind of dropped the ball.
Yeah.
But there was a few disappointments I had because there was a couple things I was looking forward to personally, and when I went to see them, they kind of fell short. The first one I want to talk about was a film called The Dead Don't Die by Jim Jarmusch.
Okay.
That was his zombie film that he did.
Is that the one with
Bill Murray and Adam Driver?
Yeah, they play like small town sheriffs kind of thing or highway, something like that.
And the thing is this, I was digging it for a little bit.
Yeah.
And then there's a huge bit in the movie.
Like a huge comedy bit?
Yeah, that kind of just like...
Tone shift doesn't feel right?
It does. It just... I don't think it worked.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And as quirky as I kind of like it, like I laughed at first, and then I'm looking at it, but because it doesn't do anything, it doesn't go anywhere from there.
Sometimes it's a bit for just the sake of doing what they think is a funny bit.
It was a misbit.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know. But you know what? Do you want me to give it away, or do you?
No, don't give it away. I think you know. Right. But I would say that it's a. Does it? Just a tone shift back afterwards.
I'm a Jarmusch fan. You know what I mean? I like his work.
Who doesn't like a couple of good scoops of Jarmusch in the morning?
I'm a Jarmusch fan. But the thing is, when I went into this, I said, all right, his zombie film is going to be different in a way.
Yeah.
And I laughed because a lot of it is just dry humor.
Tell what's something else Jarmusch is known?
Dead Man with Johnny Depp, the Western he did.
Okay.
Ghost Dog with Forrest Whitaker, where he's a samurai.
In the hood.
Mystery Train with Ethan Hawke.
Okay, all right. So I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
He's a left-of-center kind of guy a little bit. So, yeah, I guess he did do a left-of-center zombie movie then.
He did, but I don't feel like the bit worked at first.
Yeah.
And then, but I guess because it kind of just didn't go anywhere, and it kind of left me flat. I was disappointed by it because I thought it was going to be really something.
Does it derail it a little bit?
A little bit, yeah. A little,
okay.
yeah. I mean, it's hard to explain. I can only explain it if you've seen it.
Gotcha.
And we can get into it.
I see. I hear you. All right, so it's a heads up.
Yeah. It Chapter 2.
Well, let's not get too crazy on it because there's probably a lot a person could digest.
I'm not trashing the film.
Fair enough.
Because it did have some balls.
Yeah.
I just felt like I walked out of there unsatisfied somehow.
I heard it was overlong too. It didn't have to be.
It's overlong, but it's not filled with enough material to be overlong.
Okay, right.
If you know what I mean.
I think that's the crux of what I was hearing from a couple of people. Was that if more was happening, kind of, but like.
So, and I think because even the first part was kind of rewritten a little bit for the, and it was quite exceptional. It was quite compelling material.
Yeah, the first one's great.
And it's phenomenal, but it wasn't that.
Yeah.
It was okay.
Yeah.
So I'll cash it, but there's some reservations on that.
I've kind of wondered if it, as a story, if you don't toggle back and forth like the book does.
Right.
Because both movie attempts have tried to separate it out cleanly, more or less.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? But with the second half having, I guess, some flashbacks to the kids. But my point being that, it becomes two movies distinctly, where, the first is, Stand By Me with monsters, and then, the second half is fucking... I don't even know what. What's a movie about a group of friends getting back together again?
True.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
That trope, but with monsters. And it's it's kind of two different things, Right. But anyway.
And Spider-Man Far From Home.
Yeah.
Which I really, really dug.
I dug it too, man.
I dug Gyllenhaal as Mysterio.
I dug it.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I love the homage to Tony.
Yeah.
In the film too, I think it works. It works in the narrative of the story too. Marvel is what are they? 25 for 25. They're all good stuff.
24. We'll give him a credit. We'll say that there's got to be one goose egg in there somehow, right?
Which most people say is Iron Man 2, but I kind of like Iron Man.
I think opinions. I would love to hear what people would say if you told them, all right, you got to say one Marvel movie was not good, at least, which is the one that's not to say worst, but at least
I only
best.
say Iron Man 2 because I've heard people say it.
Yeah. Well, I've heard people say that too. I've also heard people say that on Iron Man 3. I've heard people say that about Thor 1, Captain America 1. I feel like certain people just what's the barometer of people? Like, because to me, I don't even know what that would be, and I'm like thinking about it now. I mean, I guess Thor 2 kind of felt like the one that kind of like didn't really do much for me when I came out of it.
I just recently watched it. I enjoyed that. You know,
It's probably better on a rewatch.
You know, let me get to something because there's a lot of people.
Oh my God, they're chomping at the bit. They're outside right now. They're guys, keep it moving.
I want to say something about Dark Phoenix. Because here's the thing.
I just got cold.
I like the new cast of the First Class cast, I call them.
Okay.
McAvoy, Fassbender, those people. This film, I think, was almost like, fuck it, let's just
it's the whatever. End. We'll do whatever we want here.
We'll do whatever. I think that I don't think it's as terrible as people are making it out to be.
Yeah.
I do see the lack of imagination for it.
Yeah.
Because I watched it again. Bill Sienkiewicz did a really nice steelbook for it, so I bought it. And I watched it again. I can't sit here and say that I wasn't entertained by it.
I'll say, like, look, it's definitely one. I think the thing is, if you've seen them all, it feels like it doesn't bring anything new.
Right.
But it's kind of well executed and, you know, pulls off what it wants to do. And, at a couple of points, it felt to me like, you can almost feel where, like, all of them trying to fix it. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
right.
Like the ending kind of feels like, is this where the problem was? Maybe.
Yeah.
But is it hot mess terrible? I don't know. But was it not like great? Yeah, I'm going to say it's not great.
No, of course. I didn't think Apocalypse was great. Yeah. Days of Future Past is great to me.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I can't even tell you, even with Apocalypse, that I wasn't entertained by this cast, by what they were bringing. And so it's kind of, I guess, a shame in a way that it wasn't as great as maybe those first two reboots.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed it for myself, and it's an X-Men film.
Yeah.
So I think that was kind of almost a pleasant surprise because I kind of went in there with low expectations.
And look, at this point now, it doesn't seem like we're ever going to get that New Mutants movie. Like, I think that thing is just going to be forgotten about, or maybe reshot in whole cloth or something. Like, I don't know. I feel like those people now are going to be so much younger.
Right.
Like, what's the shelf life on a movie at a certain point? It's like, now it's like 2 years. At least it's been done. It feels like almost or close to that.
Right.
And, like, it's just, it's just been abandoned.
So before we segue into the big film.
Who's fucking running this place? Jesus.
No, because I want to touch base with you.
Welcome to the Jay Show.
I want to touch base with you on Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. So,
why? What's the matter? You didn't like it? I can't believe you didn't like it.
No, I jerked off. I told you I fucked the empty seat behind.
I did hear that. Yeah, it did sound like that. It did sound like a little bit of that. No, yeah. Look, I loved it too. I think. It's a different animal for Quentin. He's trying to do something else, but at the same time, like every second of it feels Quentin. Like, you know what I mean?
Mm.
But I think that's what's really great about it. Like he's found a way to like, I'm gonna do like something that like on paper would seem like out of what people would think of is my wheelhouse.
Right.
But it's gonna like I have an aesthetic. I have like an actual like tone that I can put almost in anything and make it work.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? I think it's one of his best films. Like I'd be hard pressed to like put it where. Like the newest thing is usually like my favorite because it's newest. Like you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's fresh and it's like that kind of thing. But it's top three kind of thing, for sure.
It's a great piece of work.
Yeah.
The conversations I've been having about it, because this is another thing too. Some people are put off by it.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I know that I genuinely loved it because I liked the things that they didn't. I love the fact that they reenacted a fucking 50s Western show.
Yeah.
And it was brilliant.
Yeah, it was brilliant.
And let me say something about Nicholas Hammond. He had me rolling. He's a good actor. He really is. He's really, like, and I guess that's saying something for Quentin because, yeah, all right, the fact that he was the first Spider-Man on TV. But I think that he genuinely sees something in these actors.
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
Because he played that director guy.
Yeah.
Like, I was in stitches laughing.
Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff. And, like, I didn't even realize that was him at first. Like, you know what I mean? Because it's been so long since I've seen that guy on film. Right. And it took a little bit. And I was like, oh, shit, that's right. I did hear that he was in this.
Right.
And, but it is definitely, here's the thing. When Quentin writes a love letter to a thing, you know, when they say that about, you know, oh, it's a love letter to Hollywood. Oh, it's a love letter to fucking, like, kung fu flicks. It's a love letter to fucking Western fucking tension films. Let's just call, I don't know what kind of, what's it like when people are all in one spot? Like, you know what I mean? For like the duration of the movie or like a thing like that. You know what I mean? I don't know what you call them. I think there's a phrase for that. Like 10 little Indians or whatever. When people are like all in one thing, like in one
eggs in one basket.
Yeah, eggs. Sure, I don't know. Maybe there is no phrase for that. No, I'm thinking about it. But anyway, you know, I lost track of my original thing, but he's doing a thing here anyway, which is, you know, putting you inside it just enough that like. You go deeper with this guy, like into his head and his world, than most of his other characters in movies. It's usually you get just enough in the other ones, but here it's like, oh no, you're almost like, you know, living with him a little bit. Right. You know, you in the trailer and on this time on set, and just kind of like having this picture painted of just like, I'm this close to fucking being washed up, and what the fuck? But
it's a wonderful fairy tale.
Yeah.
As Once Upon a Time movies are most of the time.
You know what? That's a good point.
And
too.
because it is like a wonderful fairy tale. It's not true.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But this is what could have happened.
Yeah.
And the fact that if the Manson family went to the wrong house.
Yeah.
And ended up with these two fucking guys.
These two fucking
you know what I mean?
Is a crazy twist ending in a way.
It's a perfect fairy tale ending. Mm-hmm. And I was howling.
Yeah, howling. Well, what I do say about the film to people is that, like, what's interesting is how you do feel we are moving towards a Quentin type sequence, because the quote unquote, like, what you think or expecting doesn't really come until the end.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Until that last 20 minutes or so. And so it is kind of like a thing where, like, okay, we're just taking like a leisurely thing here. But in the back of your head, you're like, the shoe's going to drop at some point with this movie. Like, there's got to be some chain of craziness that starts, because it wasn't too crazy at any one point. It's cool scenes, it's fucking dope shit, it's weird interactions, it's funny moments, it's cool shit he does with the camera when we're watching them make a fucking TV show, that stuff.
Yeah, all
the
that
bit
stuff.
with Bruce Lee, but at the same time, it's this slow kind of ramping. Like, you know, his thing is tension in a nice 5-minute scene. I feel like he's building tension the entire movie.
Yes.
And this movie, that's what that secret kind of thing that's going on.
Right.
You don't really realize it, that, you know, scenes get more kind of intense as they all move along, until eventually, like, you get to the craziness.
Well, all his movies have that.
Well, yeah.
A lot of long, you know, conversations.
Right. Well, that's what I mean. Like,
and
I feel
builds to something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But in this particular one, there's a lot of building and building and building. But I didn't feel it because I was into what he was talking about.
Sure.
I was into the whole reenactment of a 50s show.
Yeah.
I was into this guy Rick Dalton and who he was, and his stunt guy, and
this
his
peek into
19
what was it, 60s, 70s?
69.
69. Just the Hollywood system and the scene, like in the whole how the pressures of being. On a TV versus movies,
right.
and how to make these right decisions and what to do for my career, what's the best moment, and then looking at other guys and being like, wow, this guy was on a show for a bit, and then, I don't know, what's the right move, this kind of shit. And then you have some weird tangential shit that happens, which is great too.
Yeah.
But, hey, look, when you're doing roofing without a shirt on, it gets hot, and you can start to, get distracted up there.
Like the fact that when he's explaining his career to Al Pacino and in the beginning of the film, I'm dying.
Yeah.
Because of this shit. He was in the land of the Giants villain, and he was,
all these references, which are just just so nutty, because it's like, oh my god, that you okay.
But it's true. If you go back, you'll see Rock Hudson was in an episode of
right. It either all holds
canon.
up. That's the thing. All those references either hold up specifically and exact because it is a total drop, or it's a play on some other guy's career or sequence of events.
And the fact that you went into spaghetti westerns, that's not unheard, because a lot of people did go to Italy and make these really
low budget
movies, but they're fun.
Yeah, they're fun, but they're not. They know going in, it's not a thing.
No.
Until Clint Eastwood starts doing them, I think they really didn't get any.
But even while he was doing them, Clint Eastwood became a star out of it.
Well, that's what. Okay, so he blew up out of them. But what I mean, when he started doing them was a little bit later.
Yeah,
than
he got stardom off of Rawhide.
Okay,
and then he went to Italy, made these westerns, and those westerns came here, and he blew up even to superstardom.
Gotcha. That's what really kind of took him.
So I really dug it.
Yeah, it's good stuff. It's good stuff.
So yeah, that's a hard recommendation from me, and there's a really cool horror film called Crawl you guys should go check out, because it was one of my favorites of the summer.
What's funny is that I kind of dismissed it. Right, but the trailer did look like a good trailer.
Right,
but I was like, it's an alligator movie. You know what I mean? But you telling me you were surprised by it, right? That it was as good as it was, because you kind of were like, oh well, it is what it is. I expect it to be good. But
it was a really good trailer.
Yeah,
and the director, his name is Alexandre Aja. He did The Hills Have Eyes remake, which was kind of cool, and he did The Piranha. Yeah, he did a couple of horror remakes, but he's a good director. He's a good horror director, and Raimi produced it, which also had my attention.
Okay.
So when I went to see this, it was so much fun that you need to it's a hard recommendation from me as well.
All right. As far as recommendations go, will tell people if they have Netflix. I was telling you on the phone. Country Boy Sturgill Simpson's got an album out, and it's set to an anime special, and the album is a divergent album for him anyway. From what I understand, he's this country act more or less, but he's been evolving his sound. Each album sounds a little bit different than the last, and if you actually listen to his first one, people who were fans of him from the first one. Probably then, if you only hear the newest one, are going to be like, what the fuck is that? Because it seems like a huge jump. But it's set to this anime thing, and it's got this real kind of, I don't know, techno pop kind of sound, which reminds me of Gorillaz. There's a band called TV on the Radio that I think a couple tracks sound exactly like in their wheelhouse. That might have even been a template a little bit, where they're these kind of rocky grooves, but they're buzzy and a lot of distortion and voice, stuff. So it's got a little ZZ Top-ishness with not as hard as Rob Zombie, but those kinds of production values and shit.
What's it called again?
So it's called Sound and Fury.
Sound and Fury. Okay.
And that's the name of the album. That's the name of the Netflix special. And the anime on it, if you're going to just check that out, which is probably the best way to kind of eat it up. I don't know if it's every track, but it's most of them, because it's a 45-minute special. It's this high-quality anime. It starts out with...
Oh, yeah.
Fucking... even if you just check out the video for look up the main track single stuff, it's American muscle car, an apocalyptic wasteland. There's like a samurai driving. It's just zombies and robots and this. And then as the songs go, it kind of shifts animation styles, but comes back. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, he did Batman Ninja.
Okay.
Which was like an anime Batman.
Okay.
Filmed.
That company, right? The company that did
company,
that.
And I was taken with that.
That makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Because the opening, the main sequences, which are of a very similar style to that. You know what I mean? The Batman Ninja, which looked fucking amazing. Which there you go. There's another recommendation. But Sturgill Simpson, fucking, and you might have actually heard some of his other hits, his other tracks. They had some crossover success here and there. But this is an album that I'm really digging. The sound is really in my wheelhouse in particular, but the anime special on Netflix is really worth checking out. Sound in the Fury.
I will definitely check that out.
Yeah. It's worth it. Yeah. So I don't know. You want to talk about this Joker movie?
Yeah. Before Joker.
Oh, wait, hold on.
Oh, yeah, we're going to get into the major spoilers.
That's it, kids. You've been warned. We're just going to drop the hammer here and say if you haven't seen the Joker movie, look, I don't know what we're going to get into after we're done talking about this. If there's something worth coming back for or skipping past at this moment, I just don't know. But for now, just if you haven't seen the Joker movie, we're gonna get into it. We're not really gonna dance around stuff at this point, spoiler wise.
True.
All right, so coast is clear. Let's just open it up. Open it up.
So I want to say outright first that I'm gonna take myself out of the equation. Because I did do 7 days of work on this movie,
right?
As an extra, I did see myself,
sure,
but I did 7 days on it. So, but this does not reflect my opinion.
You're trying to pull your biases out as much as you possibly can.
So, last month, I saw a film called The Kitchen. Which was a DC property. It was a DC Vertigo graphic novel.
Yeah.
But it was R-rated.
Sure.
And so I felt like this kind of was... This was also a production that was being offered to submit for extra work for.
Oh, okay.
And then I realized it was a DC property, but it almost kind of felt like Warner Brothers was kind of prepping... Mm-hmm. This film so that when the Joker comes around, we're not flabbergasted by an R-rated DC film.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
That's what I thought. But the movie was a miss.
Yeah.
Was a misfire.
You're right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I felt like it looked like they were saying, you know what, let's put The Kitchen out. It's an R-rated DC property. So that, but you know what, we kind of went through this territory with Watchmen.
Yeah. So as far as like an R-rated, as that goes, right. Yeah.
But the Joker is not as famous as a property as Watchmen.
Well, I don't know.
The character, I'm saying. That's a legendary character in the DC verse for 80 fucking years. Oh, all right.
Joker's more popular.
Yeah, more popular is what I'm trying to say.
Okay, yeah.
So, I don't know whether to start at the controversy or just talk about the film and go into the controversy.
Yeah, I think controversy will probably come up at some other point. But I feel like, it's all subjective to a degree, so we'll see how that rolls out.
Right.
But I guess we'll start out with this. Like, you liked it. You liked it a lot.
I loved it.
Right.
And I'm going to say, this is my personal opinion, of course.
Sure.
There are a few people that I've spoken to that feel the exact opposite as me.
Sure.
And on the same page as me. So
right.
I guess it's your taste.
Yeah.
Because I'll back it up with this. The movie reminded me of a few movies.
Yes.
I felt like, well, of course you have Scorsese narrative in there.
Yeah.
You have a little bit of a Cuckoo's Nest, a little bit, if
Yeah.
you want to talk about. But a film that Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer.
Okay. I hadn't thought about it, but that's when we talk about character studies of villains, bad guys, or crazy people,
right?
Heavy Portrait of a Serial Killer is one of the ones I've always felt kind of like got it right. I haven't seen it in a long time,
right?
But I was young and I was impressed by it,
right?
So I put it through that filter because I just haven't seen it in a long time. But I do remember at the time being like quite taken with Henry, and that movie, and feeling like, oh, this is kind of like how you do this kind of thing.
Right. Well, it was probably the most realistic version of a slasher you have, just as I'm looking at a realistic version of a madman. Here, and that's what it kind of reminded me of as I was sitting and watching it. So, the movie is brilliant in the sense that this is a character we've known for years. You know. Everyone's done it different. I know you put a poll up to see which one you like.
I got nothing on it.
But the thing is this. I don't know if you can necessarily, even though you're in the right wheelhouse to compare, because what are you going to compare it to?
Right.
It's hard to compare.
Yeah.
It's not really, like, you can't really compare this with Ledger.
Well, here's the thing, too. Like, as I was putting that up, right, it got me thinking because I had to put Cesar Romero on the list, right?
Right.
And it just got me really thinking that, like, these tones and genres and feels are all so different that it's not fair to really kind of compare them in a way.
Right.
You know what I mean? And, you know, this movie is the only one that's like a solo film and it's supposed to be like a character study, kind of fly on the wall. We're really not trying to make you have empathy for him. You're really just like, if you do, fine, whatever. But I think that's the movie's, like, their attempt is to try to, like, just show you a crazy person who has a really bad day, and then, like, when he loses it, because this is the nutshell of the movie, right? He's a crazy person from jump. He loses it. He has a rough run of things, very bad run of things. At the same time, because of the coincidence of you know, what's going on in the city, his you know, he gets kind of associated with the movement that's going on, this rebelling that's kind of going on in the city. And so it's like a thing where, like, you know, you can't really hold it against Cesar Romero. You can't really hold it against, you know, Heath Ledger, who's doing, like, you know, a crime boss kind of angle thing, you know, and running with that shit, you know.
Well, they all are except this Joker.
Well, yeah, right. Well, that's what I mean. And then Jack Nicholson's in a Tim Burton, you know.
I felt he was more mafia.
Right. Much more mobbed up and, you know, there's a zaniness to the Tim Burton because it's a Tim Burton thing. Like, there's that undercurrent that, like, you know. So, like, these flavors and these tones, it's almost inappropriate to fucking kind of say, like, oh, now who's the best one?
Right. Because
that's just what these conversations turn into for the fandoms.
Right. And purist fans will yell at you for not having Mark Hamill and Jared Leto in there, too.
Well, that's the other thing. And I'm like, look, Twitter only gives you 4 slots. You know what I mean? And
you don't do it.
You know, and I'm going to say Jared Leto, I don't know.
I don't know. You know what? That's interesting, too, because I've heard people that...
They love that.
They love that. But I feel like, first of all, Joaquin is nothing short of brilliant.
Yeah.
To the point where he's a great actor, but even when I sat down, because my expectation, I'm not going to lie, were kind of high for it. You know what I mean? Because it looked great. This is something I even went on the Gotham Lights podcast, and I even had a conversation with Heno and Steph about this. That, you know, and even on the Wicked Theory, where I said that
this is going to be a you know, a
but
real,
I think I said the Bugsy, lavish kind of mobster kind of thing. But in the same breath, it's still the same kind of big picture. You have a guy's descend into madness. You know what I mean? Using a narrative of a couple of different anti-heroes like Travis Bickle, Rupert Pupkin, you know, McMurphy and Cuckoo's Nest and Henry. But he's not an anti-hero.
Like, I feel like there's aspects because of the twist in it a little bit, that there's an aspect of Fight Club in there.
Correct.
There's you know, in addition to Taxi Driver,
even cult leader-ish kind
King
of
of
stuff.
Comedy and Henry.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's and there's probably, look, anything that's really about like a detached person fucking as your main figure. I think the thing, going through it is a thing where it's like, I think it's easy to lose track of the fact that, and I think it's important that, like, I don't see it as a descent into madness.
Into madness?
Yeah, because I see it as he's already
there.
He's already there. This bad day, this bad run of things, like, it doesn't really push him over an edge as much as it just kind of puts him in a, like, physically, like, in a place. Like, he's on his train, and these guys try to fuck with him, a bunch of white dudes, fucking, yuppie dudes, still giving him a hard time. And what it really, with it's the Bernie Getz situation, right? You know what I mean? Where like, some guy was defending himself, and so like,
and that's can go either way.
Yeah.
People think he went to jail,
right?
He wasn't supposed to go to jail.
Yeah, some people are like he was defending himself, regardless of like whether or not he had a registered weapon, and then other people are like that's still murder. You know what I mean? But I will say that like for this, that seems to be like it's this instigating incident that kind of like helps the city that's already about to boil over. The city's already about to boil over, and he's already about to boil over. So like it's like there's a layer of bleakness that I think, if we're going to talk about people who didn't dig it, I think that's a thing that probably puts some people off to the side a little bit, where it's like it can feel a little unrelenting, you know what I mean? And I get that, you know what I mean? And I don't really have any bones about that. My thing that keeps this from being like great is there's a certain amount of like because in the end it's a why are we here thing. Like I feel like, and like it's so like we're just a fly on the wall. We don't really get a lot of clear answers on things we kind of want clear answers on a little bit. That like unlike Henry or something else, some other things that get deep, like.
Are you referring to his delusions of grandeur?
Yeah, like his delusions, like, because here's the thing, right? Like, there's a point where, like, you find out the girlfriend really wasn't his girlfriend.
Right.
Like, he was kind of imagining all that. And I want to know if there was more than just that. And, like, and if you're going to tell me it was just the girlfriend, you know what I mean? I'm like, all right, whatever. But this dude is...
my take was that was imagined, and the fact that the very first Robert De Niro sequence was imagined.
Well, yeah,
but I think that was a given.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I think, that one was a given where it was just, we were in his head and it was like a daydream fantasy kind of thing.
I don't think everything else is, though.
But the girl...
But it's leaving you up to debate whether it is or not.
And I think the thing is that once he's off the medication is when the girl thing starts happening. And I think we're supposed to kind of probably on second viewing realize that a little clearer maybe.
Right.
And be able to point that like, okay, so from there on he really starts, that's, if you want to call it a spiral, that's the spiral. But that's him already what he is. Like I feel like he's a mentally ill dude.
Right.
As opposed to like a regular person type thing.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that's where this Joker is different.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so, like for me, like I felt like that's the one thing about Joker that to me was always, that's the point of Joker. It wasn't that he was already crazy. You know what I mean? Or already had mental illness. It was like he was supposed to be like a regular, quote unquote, regular guy who was trying to like do shit. And then his world fell apart, and that made him snap. So I feel like it's already there, like it's there in all pieces. But by making him already crazy, it gives them a little bit of like a jump start. It gives them a little bit of like an out in a way, almost too. Right. So production wise and all this shit, and like getting it all done and and the visuals and all this stuff, I still would give it a high mark.
I think it is there though, and I'll say it like this because I feel that if he was. Like, I feel like he's trying
Yes.
And the way
Certainly in the beginning,
the reason why I'm saying that is because of the job he has.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So I don't feel like he's so out there. And the reason why I say descend, like we get the impression later that he was doing this to his mother, shit to his mom.
Yes,
and,
right.
And
Yeah.
whatnot. His mother was delusional too.
Right,
and,
yeah.
and you know what I mean? So the descend meaning that this is the first time he's bringing the sickness to killing people.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? So it is a little bit of a descend.
Yeah.
He's fucking nuts, but he's going nuts now. But not only is he going nuts, he's getting people that sympathize with him.
Yeah.
Which to me, that whole narrative was brilliant.
Yeah.
That I thought brought a beautiful origin story to the Joker, using all these.
Well, it is a naturalistic spiral out of the things you establish, where it's like, well, you know, if all this is going on, then X, Y, Z should happen. So it feels like that's what I mean. That's why I feel like still works in a lot of great ways. Like, you know what I mean? There is definitely, like, once he's off the medication and he starts his trajectory of really losing it and, like, dancing by himself for no reason, just being crazy as fucking fucked out.
Yeah, maybe
you know
because, but I interpreted that.
Yeah.
As
you can say interpreted. That's fine. That's fine around here.
That's the booze.
I make up words all the time.
That's the booze that I'm not drinking here.
Okay.
Maybe that was the birth of the Joker. You know what I mean? Because Joker was a name given to him by by Murray Franklin, the Robert De Niro character.
Right, exactly.
You know what I mean? So now you know that he's went and actually did something about people that are bothering him.
So which scene?
The scene he's in the bathroom and he's doing like this whole dance.
Right.
It's almost like that is the birth of the Joker.
Right.
You know what I mean? That he's like not. He's
That's when he makes like a full
going
disconnect, or
like you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he is a madman. You know, he's out of his fucking mind. So now, you know, as it goes on, and he goes on the show. Yeah. You know what I mean? And you know, confesses that he did this, which I thought was brilliant.
Yeah, that works out pretty well.
I was disturbed. I was, you know, it was disturbing.
Yes. Yeah.
Because even when he spoiler alert.
Yeah.
When he goes and he kills Murray Franklin on the show.
Yeah.
That was so real to me, just as the senator that popped his own fucking.
Yes.
I had the same reaction.
I felt the same way.
That's how engrossed I was into this film.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That I felt, for me, that it hit every nerve it was supposed to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then at the end of the film, when he realizes he kills the psychiatrist with the bloody footprints. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and he's in Arkham. You know what I mean? It's almost as if, like, you know, now that is your origin.
Yes.
You can put it to yourself down the road.
Do with it what you want.
They give you Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
He's there.
Yeah.
As a little boy.
Yeah.
I
will say this. I will say this for sure about the movie. I said this to Ed after we watched it. Finally, a valid reason to be in Crime Alley.
Yes. Yes.
Like all these times throughout the whole thing. I never bought in the Batman mythos is that, you know, we go see Zorro, and then the richest guy in the city is like, let's go down this alley as a shortcut. Like, but in this particular thing, because all this rioting is going on outside the theater and in the streets, it's like, fuck, okay, let's just get off the street.
I'm gonna attest to that because I was there. The assassination of Thomas Wayne, I was there for.
Okay.
He went down because it's like supposed to be like an alleyway through the city.
Yeah.
Through like a getaway, because outside that was chaos. You know what I mean? I am throwing a fucking police barricade. People like me are in the fucking street. Hey, fuck you! You know,
I did see somebody. I forget what they were doing. They were shaking something, or they were throwing the wooden horse, the barrier horse, the wooden one, up and down or something. And I was like, that's what Jay should have been doing. But I don't think that was Jay.
I think, you know, I got to go back. I'll talk about my experience in a minute, but
okay.
I want to go back
and try and
when it comes on Blu-ray.
Well, yeah,
you know what I mean.
Yeah.
When the
really
Steelbook comes out. But back to this thing. I mean, the actual conversation between Bruce and Joker.
Yeah.
Compelling. deep,
Yeah.
disturbing.
Stuff I didn't think I was going to get in this movie either.
Exactly.
I thought we were going to get, like, you know, Thomas Wayne and, you know, maybe the wife, and I didn't think the kid was going to be on the radar at all.
Well, I knew.
Well, I mean, I kind of
Did
figured.
I tell you?
Well, I don't think you mentioned it. And if you did, it didn't sink. It didn't sit in my head.
okay.
So you might have mentioned it, like, you know, because talking about past production stuff. But I didn't realize that the kid was going to be in it. So I was pleasantly surprised in the end how they let it work on the two fronts that they needed it to work within the context of the story they were doing, but also play just a little bit with the mythos and mythology kind of stuff, where it was just, you know, just enough and more than I thought I was going to get out of it because of Todd Phillips' seeming goal of making this self-contained as much as possible.
Right.
You know what I mean? But it does lay some kind of groundwork there, you know what I mean? Where it's like, oh, this fucking, we've met before. Like, you know what I mean? You know,
yeah.
In this world, if Batman comes to fruition, you know, it could easily be a thing where, like, oh, fucking, like he finds out who he is, like, you know, I came to I came to your house one day,
right? And I bought into all of it.
Really
too.
old Joker by that time, but
right,
like old man Joker,
right.
But anyway,
so but to me, it came together for me. There was it is a slow burn at times.
Yeah,
but like. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I feel like I guess because I was so engrossed by it.
Yeah.
I was, first of all, I am happy that a film like that can still exist.
Yeah.
And the controversy that's surrounding it is basically because of the day and age we live in.
It's a little bit of that, but also I feel like the controversy is a matter of people, you know, not seeing it and making some kind of preconceived notions, because I was surprised how off my preconceived notions were based on all that media kind of conversation, right? Like, so even me, like, I'm trying to go in there relatively neutral as possible, but I know a million things about fucking Joker and movies and shit, right? So I've come with that baggage, but now it's like, okay, it's not... Like, someone asked me at my job, he was like, oh, I'm going to see it tomorrow. I was like, well, I saw it last night. And he was like, oh, well, what'd you think? And I was like, oh, it was pretty good. I was like, it was not, you know, the masterpiece I think some people are saying. I think I disagree with that. But, you know, it's not the movie that's going to, I don't think, would trigger, you know, most people into going into a killing spree. I don't think it's laid out like that. Like, you know, I think that's a lot of people presuming what this is going to be and how it's going to handle those concepts and ideas. Because I think the thing is, because of the scenes, like you said, you know, with when he shoots De Niro on that show, it does feel like how it would probably happen. Like, it feels realistic. It feels like the moment stops, you know what I mean? And you hold on him, and he's got that little shaky leg thing and doesn't know what to fucking do now.
Yeah.
And it's like, you could just watch him in his head a little bit. And they don't put that on you, but you know that that's what's going on in his head. And that he's, you know, and it's this realisticness to certain things like that. And like you said, it's disturbing. I think there's enough disturbing things here that the message of, or the idea of, this is not us playing lightly with this stuff. Right. And we're not trying to build him into some, like redeemable or likable thing. Right. I don't think if the movie makes any missteps, I don't think it makes a misstep necessarily with that. Like, you know, and my things on a much like how, like, just me, like, deals with things. Like, I don't expect the issues I might have with the movie to be like what people in general have, because I feel like, you know, the way movies play in my head.
Because you can step outside the box and say, I'm leaving comic books over here.
Exactly.
And you're taking in the film.
Well, before we started, we were talking about my thinking on a lot of these kinds of things, why we don't get movies like this that are self-contained, like experiments with a property, is because, like, Hollywood doesn't know how to make them and is scared of making them, and they only exist like in comic books or side materials, where it's like, oh, this story really kind of doesn't count to the big continuity, but here's a crazy story about Superman if he landed in Russia. You can't make Red Sun. But maybe now you could, right? But, like, what would you know? people wouldn't know what to make of it in Hollywood.
Right.
It would never get made, and if it got made, audiences wouldn't know what to do with it. Oh, a communist Superman? Oh,
Yeah.
what is that like? You know, so like that's an uphill battle this movie has with audiences in general.
Right.
So the fact, like you said, the fact that it got made, besides the fact that it's rated R and it's like based on like comics adjacent material, like is a cool thing, is a good thing for creative and getting other good stories made. You know what I mean? And the fact that it's an Elseworlds, it's not a canon official Joker story, like, you know what I mean? And because it doesn't really use a lot of the real quote unquote actual Joker origin stuff from the comics, really, that it's not the same Joker, really. You know what I mean? This is you know, this as much as they say it's homage to Taxi Driver and it's homage to King of Comedy, because it uses a lot of those similar kind of things. And the fact that De Niro's there as a talk show host, like, really reinforces that.
Yeah.
But at that point, you might as well. That, like, you know, it's trying to do something so on its own that, like, at the very least, you kind of have to just say, look, this is, like, if you're trying to chalk it up against what you know what I mean? Because we were talking to about, you know, some people can't get their head around that, but it's a superhero thing, I thought. And it's like, again, my point of, like, general audiences, when you start to go outside the box a little, they don't know what to really do with that shit sometimes. You know what I mean? That's why, like, you can't make, like, a what-if movie. Right. Like, it's got to be a cartoon show on Disney Plus, which is fine, which is great. Give me something. But, like, if you want to do, like, experimental, like, you're never going to get, like, a James Bond movie that's, like, the only way, like, you got different things in James Bond was because there was, like, a rights issue with one of them, you know what I mean? And the other one just got really crazy. Like, you know what I mean? So, like, to have anything break out of the mold or the norm, audiences really don't know what to do with it, you know? So I feel like some of this, if this just comes off to you, like, you just want to chalk this up to, like, an exploration into, you know, a character study of a person on the verge of breaking down, and then what that happens. Just, this movie's not going to give you any redemption arc. It's not going to give you any solid clarity, because I don't think it really needs any. Like, he's insane. You know what I mean? Like, there's no big mystery to why he does what he does in a way. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's a point where, like, you know, he does these weird laughs for no reason, but when we first see him do it, he's on the bus and it's the thing with the kid and the mom, and like
he opens up with it,
and we open up with it,
which is I'm hooked right away, and yeah, the thing is, I'm one of those people, like, I don't care what anybody else thinks.
Yeah, me too.
You know that. You know what I mean? And I go, now, the reason why I feel it's a masterwork is because I feel, first of all, the whole device of taking the Joker character and applying these narratives to it, and even going unexpectedly further with, like, Henry, a Portrait of a Serial Killer, it means that, to me, I felt that they were taking extra care into really developing a very disturbing narrative of a madman.
They definitely, when, you know,
for me, it works. For me, it works. I was like, I was into this film and not even, well, at one point things were just looking a little too familiar. I'm like, oh my God, I'm here. I'm in this.
Yeah, that's gotta be rough for you.
Which was crazy.
That about the third act.
But again, I'm speaking as a man. I loved it. And when I say disturbing, I mean that as a compliment. Because I love dark and disturbing films.
Well, that's what this movie...
Which is probably why I loved it a little more.
Well, that's... But what you can definitely say to that is that that's part of the goal here. So the movie achieves... And that's one of the things, is that I kind of look at movies like this. Like, even if, like, I have, like, small misgivings or something, it's like, to me, a movie or a TV show achieving, like, really truly achieving what it's trying to do, and what it's trying to do is clear, but not, like, beat me over the head with it. It's a fine line on that.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? But I feel like this movie does. Now, then, how does that work with you, you know, as an individual, whatever.
Yeah.
But I feel like I couldn't possibly take that away from this movie. This movie goes out of its way to kind of give you, like, logical reasons for why things happen and how things play out. And I feel a lot of that stuff works. You know what I mean? You know, I like the idea that, like, you know, he does those when we first see the laugh, the thing I was going to say is that, like, it seems like, oh, he kind of does that in these uncomfortable, like, moments, like, I don't know what to do, and it's like a tic, and it's like an uncontrollable thing. So it's like, okay, that's, you know, some mental illness stuff, you know what I mean? And he's got this card, and he gives it to the lady, you know what I mean? And she's like, all right, whatever, you're fucking nuts, you know what I mean? But much later on, they raise the question of whether or not that's a real thing. You know, the cop is like, what's this card that you give to people? Like, you know, we kind of like looked into that. Is that like a, you know what I mean? And I would presume that it probably is because it's, you know, it's like a Tourette's type thing. Right. But he also does it randomly. Like he's just going down the hall at work, buttoning his shirt and like, sure, something kind of amusing happened, but he does this awkward laugh that feels disjointed and not really at anything. And I think those are, these kinds of things, you know, that's what helps to reinforce that he's got deeper problems. Like, you know what I mean? That it's not like, we're literally just, to me, it goes back to the idea of like them reinforcing that, you know, this guy is fucking crazy, you know, and he's going to do crazy shit. And I don't think it glorifies anything. I don't think that this is a movie that people could point to and be like, oh, it glorifies the mental illness or murder or violence or any of that. And the whole thing with, like, I thought too going into it, like there'd be like this kind of sequence where he was like talking to the crowd of these people and was like getting them riled up, or he would get to speechify in some moment.
I love that.
But I love that he didn't. Right. Like, you know what I mean? He just happens to crash his car. Those guys don't even know necessarily who he is, but they pull him out of it.
I'm in that scene.
You know what I mean?
And I told you this. Yeah. I was here. I remember we did the show and I was leaving. I thought that might have been like the end of the film. Yeah. But the thing is, I love that scene. I loved it because I remember when we shot it. Yeah. You know what I mean? I remember the smoke was around. Yeah. And he's on the hood. Yeah. And he stands up. Yeah. And he's like seeing like everybody praising him. Yeah. And right there, and then he just goes into his little
gestury dance.
Brilliant. I love that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because
it's beautifully shot.
And it's fucked up too. Yeah. You know what I mean?
And the more you think about it, the more kind of like I was saying, like detached it is from everything. Because again, like he's just kind of doing this thing, and people don't know that he's the guy from the subway. Like he is the instigator of this kind of
they know it now because of the show.
Well, that's true. Right. But they, you know, that's true. I didn't think about that.
They know it because
he's wearing the same clothes.
And they're behind him. Yeah, because they knew it was a clown.
Yeah.
People wearing those masks.
But.
Let me bring another interesting element to this too. I love another reason why I love this so much is because everything is from his point of view. Yeah. And a good example of this is those two cops.
Okay.
If this was formula, Bill.
Yes,
you would have gotten the whole fucking case.
Yeah, you would have gotten the whole side story.
You only get his version of it.
We don't see the cops at the station. We don't see them talking to the chief.
No.
We don't see them canvassing the neighborhood or something like that.
No.
Yeah, and just when they pop up. Just when they
pop up and they fucking get into critical condition.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Which to me was fucking brilliant. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, because if this was formula, sure. Even in a hard-edged R-rated movie, you would have gotten the case files backed up.
You don't really go. You don't. I'm trying to think. You don't go to anybody else's POV.
No. The only thing you get, the only one that I can think of is like the riot sequences, but that's because of him. And the assassination of Thomas Wayne, but that's because of him. Yeah. You know what I mean? So But that's still helping his narrative.
Yeah.
Everything is from his.
Sure. And those scenes are few and far between. Like, you know, otherwise, like, you know.
It's all him.
He is central protagonist.
And I appreciated that because that even, to me, brings the narrative across even more.
Yeah. One of the things that's
like Henry.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, and I think that's the other thing for these kinds of movies. Sometimes real character studies like this that don't bother themselves with typical format and structure. That they, like, you know, I don't remember with Henry, but like in this, there's no antagonist. Like those cops trying to investigate him aren't like trying to catch him. Like, you know what I mean? They're like looking into him. Like, you know what I mean? And since we don't follow them at all, there's no, and obviously no Batman. You know what I mean? And the only thing close to like, because we're following his POV, is his enemy, which is Wayne. At a certain point, becomes like his, like not antagonist, but like, is the only person in a way like he's looking to get. Like even with killing what's his name, Mort, on the show, he doesn't see him necessarily as the enemy. I don't think. I think he sees him as like just a thing I want to do. Like, I don't even think it's about him making so much of the message that he says that kind of stuff on the show.
Well, he does say, I think you're the joke. Yeah. I think you're the problem. I think, and I was hoping they didn't wuss out. I'm like, don't wuss out.
Well, what I'm getting at is like, he might say like, I don't remember all the dialogue, but if there's something about like, like people like you, blah, 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 like message stuff or like bigger idea stuff, he's simply there for revenge. He's like, you embarrassed the fuck out of me, and you picked on the wrong guy, mostly because I'm nuts. You know what I mean? But, yeah, and that was the other thing, too. Like, I was wondering in that moment, how is this going to go down? Like, is he going to shoot him at one moment? And then, like, it looks like it's going to happen, and it doesn't happen, then it happens. So it was kind of like, I liked the way, creatively, like, the choices made there, a lot of that stuff.
Real. It was so fucking real, though, man.
The only, like, one thing I didn't buy was when, like, he's outside with the crowd and he slips in
right
to a building.
Yeah, I forget the movie theater.
Yeah. When he slips into the movie theater and puts on the movie theater jacket, like, I was like, you would have gotten busted for that. Like, you weren't slipping in, because I was just like, there's not enough, because it was a tight shot when he kind of slips away from everybody. You don't get the geography of the scene, I think, because it would have been obvious a little bit that, like,
I was there for that. I was there for that, and and I got to tell you, it's kind of plausible if you saw the layout of the place. Simply because
that's the thing. Yeah. I felt like if I didn't have the geography, it was because they were cheating it a little bit. If they had given me more geography, I would have known that, that is kind of plausible.
There's a lot cut.
Well, that's the other thing, too.
There was that scene, they throw him out of there.
Okay.
And there's a scene where they throw him out, and you can see a little bit of it in one of the trailers.
Right.
Where they throw him out on the red carpet, and he does like a tumble.
Okay.
And there was also a scene where we're still out there, and it's raining.
Yeah.
On us.
Okay.
That was all cut. In fact, they Todd Phillips even said that there was a few things cut.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if we'll get like a director's cut out of this.
Yeah, it'd be interesting.
But even the Thomas Wayne character, who's really good, Brent Cullen.
Yeah, well, he's a great actor.
He that whole thing too in the bathroom.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was a realistic conversation. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I'm glad like he just didn't storm away. Like anything.
Yeah,
well,
it was
done.
our big scene. We needed to get that all out.
And but I'm saying like in other scenes I've seen them like storm away. Somebody
in other productions,
throws them out. This was more like you're. What's his name's mother?
Yeah.
Oh, let me tell you something, little shit.
And that's the thing. At that point, it's like, who do you believe in a way, too? Like, what I mean? Because it's like, well, wouldn't Thomas Wayne lie about that if it did happen? Granted, the whole time I'm like kind of like only half buying it, So how did you feel when they tried to drop that on you? Because when they tried to drop that, like, know what? Thomas Wayne's your dad.
I was buying it, man.
I was like annoyed.
Were you?
Yeah.
Because first of all, it's because I didn't believe it.
I didn't think they were going to do it.
I didn't
think they were going to do it. But I was like, in my head, I was like, if that holds, that's going to be the problem for people.
No,
and for me.
I like the ride.
I like the ride. I like that. That's the thing that they fuck with his head with. And then, we're pretty much left to now believe that She was crazy,
I
and
saw
she did
it,
not,
yeah.
and somebody else is his dad.
But I saw it as plausible. Of course,
Yeah. Well, that's the
this is a
thing.
one
Yeah.
shot. You
Yeah.
can do anything you want.
Sure.
I didn't. I mean, when I liked the ride. It took him. Oh fuck.
Yeah.
I kind of was.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that's kind of fucking cool.
Yeah, I was.
You know?
I was a little nervous about it. I kind of knew what they were doing,
But I didn't believe it.
Yeah, and I didn't give it 100%. But my antennas were up.
Yeah.
My bat ears definitely went up, and I was like, well, we can't do that. We
Right.
can't make him Batman's older brother.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? So,
But like I'm saying,
and I was very happy it didn't stick.
well, no, but because of the screenplay,
Yeah.
I think brought a little merit to that situation because I did buy into, like, I knew something was going
Well,
on.
don't get me wrong. Like, I wasn't buying it in 100, but like, obviously, it was on my radar enough that I was giving it like 20% possibility.
Sure.
Like, you know what I mean? It's like they could go that way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Because of her and her relationship, she keeps talking about him. I'm like, well, that was kind of cool. So I liked the ride. I didn't believe it, though.
Yeah.
I thought that was something in his head.
Yeah, and that's what I was kind of waiting for too, was something like that to happen.
But I
Or-
was
yeah.
pleasantly surprised when he said, no, you were adopted.
Yeah.
She didn't
Yeah.
say that to you?
She didn't tell you that? Yeah.
And
that leaves it. That adds that randomness back to the
Yeah.
Joker in a sense where, like, oh, we really didn't meet his mother. We didn't really meet this guy's parents. Like, because that's the thing it plays with too, is trying to, like, the ideas of the Joker in the comics, maybe not the origin stuff, but the ideas like a guy like that should be kind of like nebulous on some level.
Right.
So as much as we get to see his life right before he changes, let's just say, like, or turns into Joker, like, it's not like we're getting this complete picture of him. Like, you know, we don't know the parents. We weren't given that. We don't know the childhood really. We weren't given that. Like, you know what I mean? And there is certain, because some people are like, oh, like, you're giving too much origin to a character who should be kind of more random and mysterious. And I agree with that to a degree. But I don't think that you could kind of exist in this world that we live in now and not expect at some point.
it intrigues me that
Yeah.
you got an origin story of someone who's really shouldn't be celebrated. That's what makes great cinema to me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Kind of like Henry.
Yeah,
You know, so
we live in a world where we are now used to having these character studies, quote unquote, of the bad guys, right? Tony Soprano, Walter White, you know, Vin Mackey from fucking The Shield, Henry, Taxi Driver, King of Comedy. Like, these are things that kind of come and go. This is not that.
these are not likable people.
These are not ever supposed to be likable people. And for once, this is probably the least likable, least relatable person. So for people who kind of like are giving it a hard time, it's like, this isn't like Sopranos or Walter White, where like you're supposed to kind of at least kind of like see their side in a way. Like, we know that he's making bad choices and decisions the whole time.
Right.
We don't ever really kind of agree with him that he should go and kill the guy on a talk show.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, so, like, I think, you know, it achieves that where it's like, no, this guy's fucking batshit crazy. And, like, it would be more of
no pun intended.
No pun intended. He would be even more... It would be more egregious of us to change him in that way, right? To say, like, oh, here's why Joker is lovable. Like, you know what I mean? Imagine getting enough backstory on Jack Nicholson's Joker that, like, all of a sudden, like, oh, we get it. Like, you know what I mean? No, like, he's a jerk, too, in that movie. Like, Joker's always, like... There's a line there somewhere.
True.
Like, that always kind of... He doesn't ever become... the Walter White, Tony Soprano thing.
No.
Where, like, we humanize them so much, but this is the least humanizable one. And I think people don't realize that that's part of the point of it.
True.
You know what I mean? Like, this movie is supposed to disturb you. That
Yes.
is part of the plan. That is what they're kind of going for. Like, yeah, he's mentally ill from the jump. That's the point. that's the thing we're doing.
Right.
Whether that works for you or not, hey, it doesn't work for you. Like, you know what I mean?
But I don't think people should be going the lengths to ban this.
Well, here's the thing too. Like I've been saying this a lot lately. Nuance is lost.
Yeah.
And when we talk about general public, like nuance for anything.
That's why I kind of like the fact that it's a little bit of a fuck you to the way things are right now. Yeah. There's no reason why we shouldn't be telling this story.
Yeah. Well, I think I agree with you. Like that. Like
it's a big fuck you.
Well, I don't agree that it's a fuck you because I don't think that's the statement.
No, I don't think
some things are like that where it is a literal like
like
it
Rambo.
Is
Rambo Last Blood.
I haven't seen it,
but no. I feel what I mean by that is by the fact that we kind of live in a world right now where people are very oversensitive.
This movie isn't a movie that you would think would get made right now.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And I'm glad it does because it makes for great storytelling. Mm-hmm. It helped the narrative of Joker, I felt. You know what I mean? By doing that.
Right.
That's what I was pulled into, and that's why I feel it's a bit of a masterwork.
Yeah. I would say that, like, where we divide on that is only that, like, I see it as a good thing because I feel like, regardless of whether I like it or not.
That's what I mean by fuck you.
No, but that's what I mean. Like, by existing, it flies in the face of a more time where we seem to love making controversies out of a lot of things. Right. But I do feel like, at the very least, because I feel like this movie could have made bigger missteps, and it doesn't. I feel like, but my point being that, like,
could have been a mess.
I feel like without things that art is supposed to cause a conversation sometimes. You know what I mean? Sometimes the conversation is, oh, we all agree it's a beautiful, sweet thing. It's Forrest Gump. You know what I mean? And it's who could not love it? Like, you know what I mean? And then sometimes there's conversations about, a painting in a museum that's of the Mother Mary, and they used elephant dung to make it. You know what I mean? And so, we have a conversation about that too. It's going to be a different conversation. You know what I mean? But these things...
Couldn't have used brown magic
But these
marker.
things have to arise once in a while. You know what I mean? Like, well,
But couldn't you have used brown magic marker?
I mean, like,
instead?
I get the idea. I'm just like, the process. Well, problematic. But it is a thing where, like, I feel like, without these things coming and happening once in a while, how do we test ourselves and find out where our own barometer is as a society, right?
Right.
Because that's the thing. Like, that's why, as much as all these kinds of crazy conversations about controversies and, like, cancel culture and these things, it's still good for humanity as a soul, because what's really happening is that we're always having these conversations with ourselves, with the psyche. So it's like, sure, it feels like things are going crazy and nothing's like it used to be, and
right.
it kind of is. But what's happening is that the conversations you would have at a table with a bunch of people and get some different opinions now happen on a grander scale. And you can either tune it out or tune in and be selective about what you want to listen to.
Right.
That's just human nature. But I feel like, at the very least, like, if these things don't happen once in a while, like, it's easy to get complacent. And also, what you start to do is make people second guess their ideas, right? Like, look, like, you would go into this knowing probably what people's hangups are going to be, right? Like, if you're the creators on this, right? And for a lot of things. So, like, when people are sitting in their houses looking to write something, sometimes it's going to be like, is this a thing people are going to give me a hard time about? And am I going to be able to... Can I defend it or not? Like, you know what I mean? Like, it creates these little invisible barriers in front of creativity. If you told me, like, oh, as a kid, like, you can't make a painting and put poop on it and, expect people to fucking care about it, who knows how that kid's going to process that, Maybe, or whatever. But, like, by not ever having it, and being a society that doesn't allow for it, like, some things to kind of test the limits.
Right.
Then eventually, like, the limits are going to be, like, super low, right? Like, it becomes the thing where, like if you don't have things that fucking freak you out, right? Then the things that actually, like big problems, right, or bigger things, right, and then all the things that do freak you out are these tiny things, right?
Right.
So it's like, imagine you live with somebody, right, in a house, and we don't have those issues of somebody not cleaning up after themselves or whatever. Like, it's all pretty basic. But you know what's driving me crazy is that he leaves his keys right there every day. Like, all of a sudden, like, these things that should be tiny feel bigger because they're the only problems.
Right.
You know what I mean? So all of a sudden, like, if we're a super sensitive society, one day we're going to be annoyed by something as innocuous as Pee Wee Herman.
Well, that's the way it's looking. Yes.
But that's the way, and I think that's wrong. It's not going to change. It feels like it's going to change because we have these conversations more. But I think that in the end, clarity will still always prevail because these things aren't really going away. Well, we've gotten more R-rated superhero movies than ever that we didn't think we would get. Didn't think we would get a Deadpool R-rated movie, 2 of them. Like, that was never going to happen. Thought we would get a Preacher TV show that's like almost as fucked up as the book, if not more sometimes. Jesus and fucking Hitler were characters on that show, and they were fighting each other in the last season.
Well, I read that Todd Phillips said he didn't want to do comedy anymore because people are offended by it.
Well, he's too sensitive then.
No. They don't. But people are sensitive.
But he's sensitive about this.
Well, not that he doesn't want to do it because he feels like everybody's sensitive. Why should I?
He said that why? Imagine trying to make a comedy these days. Like, you know what I mean? But you know what? Then you gave up because not for nothing. Like, it's like you being sensitive to their sensitivity doesn't really solve any problems.
He went and
either.
did something better, I think.
And that's fine, too, making a left turn. But, it's a really short-sighted kind of thing to say. Granted, he said it in a conversation, in an interview. It's not like a thing he sat and thought about. It's a reactionary comment. It's a lot like everybody giving Martin Scorsese a hard time a little bit, and I did, too, for being like, Marvel just makes theme park movies. Like, you know what I mean? And it's like, yeah, but someone's asking him a question in an interview, and I give celebs a little bit of a leeway with that a little bit because sometimes you say something off the cuff, and it's like, well, I do... There's a nugget in there that I feel, and maybe I phrased it wrong.
I read that, and this is what I have to say. Look, I understand that something like Raging Bull, breaks the barriers of cinema and stuff like that. You know what I mean? I'm well aware that comic book films are, it's almost kind of like the Fast and Furious films too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm a comic book guy. I like that kind of stuff. So, it's a little extreme to say that it's not cinema. You know what I mean?
That's what I said.
And whatnot. I don't know if he really meant that.
Yeah.
I feel like maybe he's just thinking like what we all do, and it's like I would like to see something a little more.
High art.
High art, exactly.
Yeah. And I think they were trying a little bit with Joker.
I think it succeeds with Joker.
I think that's fine.
Yeah, I think it is bringing it into the fold, but I also don't think that Todd Phillips set out to make a DC superhero movie either.
No, absolutely not. And, and look, you can go down the list because a lot of people's comeback to Todd Phillips was like, they rattled off edgy stuff that's still coming out and edgy comedians that are still, working. So it's like, there is stuff. Like, he's not really, in that comment, he's not really taking into consideration, like, the bigger picture kind of thing. And
but it annoys me. I agree with it. It annoys me that people are just oversensitive by, like a tea bag on the side of the road.
Yeah, and I'm annoyed that people get annoyed by the tea bag.
I'm saying. I agree with you.
No. We disagree. I'm annoyed by people that feel like you do. Because to me, it's like, okay, but like, here's the thing. Like, I'm not saying give in to their sensitivity, but what I'm saying is that, like...
I'm not real.
No. Well, I'm just saying people...
The thing is like people are pissed by everything,
right.
And it annoys me that because when I go to my Facebook, because I don't do Facebook anymore,
right?
You know what I mean? Which is supposed to be fun,
right?
But it's turned into this fucking beast,
right? And I feel like a lot of people their reaction to that, like in that way, where like how I get frustrated with Facebook too, which is like there's some really fucking stupid shit, and it annoys the fuck out of me, but like. I'm just like that reaction in me is their reaction that made them do their thing. So like what I'm saying is it's cyclical, and if somebody doesn't break the cycle, it just will always continue. So what I got to realize sometimes, for me anyway, is that like, if I'm mad about other people being mad,
when
like,
I
you know
say
what I mean?
mad, it means like it's annoying, and I just fuck that. You know what I mean?
No, but I
Like,
get that. But that's what I'm saying. Like, sure, you don't have to engage, but
But the thing is, though, Bill, if you do engage,
yeah.
you know what I mean? You're like, crucified at the fucking stake. You know what I mean? If and that's what's annoying about this whole thing. Like your opinion,
Right.
of.
But that's how it goes now. So like you're crucifying them at the stake,
Right.
For their thing, and then they crucify you back.
Right, or in labeling you too.
Yeah, but that's the same thing. Like it becomes an exchange because when they label you, or you in quotes, not you, but like
Right.
when they label me, then my reaction is to label them back. Oh, I'm a lefty. Well, then you're a fucking righty. Like, you know what I mean? Oh, I'm an up.
Right.
You're a down.
Like,
and that's
I wanna
the
make
problem with the when we get into these kinds of
When I
things.
wrote something in a screenplay,
Yeah.
I don't think that if you're making a film
Yeah.
or doing some kind of art, you know what I mean, that you should be able to
do what you want.
do what you want.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But when you're getting lambasted
Yeah.
because that's the thing to do now.
Well, here's the thing. When we make art, it's for the audience to decide what it is in the end. Like, I make it what it is as much as I can. I paint this picture, but it's for the other people to interpret, and it's subject. That's the root of subjectivity.
But a lot of people make art for themselves that are trying to say, all right, this is my art. I like it, but...
Right. And that's what it is. I like it, but I'm putting it out into the world. And now other people are going to look at it and make up their own minds of how they think it is or interpret it. So if I put out a static image painting, or if I make a movie, or if I make a TV show, like my goal and my intentions are one thing. But how people take it sometimes and interpret it, sometimes that's the hardest lesson of all, because it's like, well, that's not what I was writing. Like, this is a thing I used to think about, like, when we used to read books in school, like, Catcher in the Rye and this kind of thing. And the teacher's telling me what the themes were and what the actual messages the author was trying to put out. I'm like, you don't know that. That's a thing that you can pluck out of it afterwards as you read it, but you don't know what his head was unless he said it, or in an interview said, well, my goal was X, Y, and Z. But still, there's a certain point where you put your babies at the door. You push your birdie out the nest, and it's, it lives a life of its own. And I think that's a thing where, like, the thing now is that everybody talks more to each other on a grander scale. And so a lot of times what happens is that, like, because something is, like, heating up, and it's easy to kind of,
That's why I don't engage.
Yeah.
Because if people are just pissed off by every goddamn thing.
Well, it feels like people are pissed off at every goddamn thing, but they're not. It seems like it, but they're not. The thing is that negativity rings louder. It stings more. Like, if if I have a gallery showing as an artist, and like one person, like, it's like, you never hear like creatives say this, like, it only takes one negative comment on my fucking Twitter feed, from somebody giving me a hard time, and that shit is in my fucking head all day. You know what I mean? It only takes one person to fucking ruin my day. And that's a truism about everybody. Like,
Well, yeah, I feel it's going on a lot more, and but it's about every little thing.
And that feeling and that impression is false. Like, most of the time, it's false. It feels like it's more.
Like, there's a lot of negativity. I mean, we've had this conversation about how I feel about negativity, and I feel that people need to be more open-minded and let, like,
absolutely,
what
that
I mean?
in general,
If you don't agree with a certain thing, then don't watch,
right?
Or don't embrace, but don't don't bash something unless you've witnessed it for yourself.
There's that.
You know what I mean? And you want to have open expression. Sure, you can have open expression, but it's just that it seems that there's a lot of negative on top of negative, and that is probably why, I view movies differently.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely view Joker differently than many.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Like, that's
because
why
there's nothing negative about it, even though it's a story about somebody doing awful things. But I feel that there's nothing negative about it for you to stand there and say that this movie should be banned because it's a comic book guy that is doing horrible things.
He's not doing jokey joke stuff. There's no Look, it's the problem with art is a
You
subject.
understand what I'm saying?
No, I do. But I think we just kind of like my hook and my hang up lately is trying to find the stopgap in things with this, where it's like, you know, we all get kind of like caught up in the cycle of it all, of like, oh, it feels like and it seems like everybody's negative now. Everyone's giving everything a hard time, and it's like, it seems like that or it feels like that, but it's really not. The problems are a few things. One of them is that, like, people, when they like something, aren't as vocal as when people don't like something. And when people,
There's that.
And when people talk about how they, and are you going to say that on every one of my points here? And when people say that they don't like something, they say it differently. They say it with a nastier tone, and most times they're really fucking shitty about their dislikes. And also, too, like, you know, the way that the world is structured now, it gets more eyeballs, and it's more interesting to have a conversation about what people are hating than what people are liking, right? So we could have this conversation has our adrenaline going right now in a way that if we were talking about how much people love this movie, it wouldn't. Like, there is something inherently cathartic and engaging about talking about this kind of stuff, like when people like hate culture or cancel culture and these kinds of things. So what I'm trying to say is that, like, there's a false impression that's been going on for a long time about, like, the numbers of people. It's like when people say, oh, you know, there's all this hate for Last Jedi. It's like, and there's probably a lot of hate for Return of the Jedi. But nobody knew all those people. Those people didn't have any voice, right? And if you look at the sales numbers, I'll be damned if so many people didn't like Revenge of the Jedi, because, or whatever it was, because The Last Jedi, because that shit made fucking billions of dollars. Right. Like, those people who had a real problem with that movie, with Jedi, are like a 0-point-something percentage. Like, you know what I mean? In the big numbers. But the impression that we get, because, like, talking about what they're talking about, not like talking about like their points, but talking about like, oh, those people who don't like the thing, like, oh, they're such jerks. Like that, those conversations happen a lot. Like, we're having conversations about conversations. Like, and so so now there's two kinds of conversations going on.
Yeah.
And like in the big pie chart of like what people are talking about, it becomes this bigger slice. And so like it's like how much there's people bitching about other people bitching. And therefore then that pie wedge is bigger now. You know what I mean? And I feel like there's a false impression a lot of times that like people get caught up on. Like if you did the poll, like, you know what I mean? And like people's like, the actual numbers would be lower than you would probably think that they are. Because it's more interesting to talk about, you know, like all these sites are not going to be talking about like how much money Joker makes unless there's like a spin on it like, oh, wow, despite what people thought, like there has to be a spin, right? Like, you know what I mean? And that all that does is remind you, the reader, like, yeah, people didn't think it was going to be good. Or, And so it's just it's the way media and even human conversations go.
Yeah.
Because not for nothing, like one of the first things that guy asked me, like when I was telling you, that guy came to my job and asked me about Joker, was like, "Oh, should I be worried?" I was like, "No." I mean, worried about what? Like a shooter? Like, no. Like, obviously not really, but also it's not a movie that's gonna like flip some switch in your brain. Like that's what I think some people want to like say that art does. And I don't think art really does that to people as a whole. I think art can do that to very small percentages of people. That's something I've come to believe, that like, oh, you know, Catcher in the Rye is just a book and a story. But it did seem to like really resonate with a couple of people a little too much.
Like Mark David Chapman.
Exactly. I wasn't gonna say any names.
Usually people with 3 names.
Well, usually just because I couldn't remember his name. But right, you know, like that obviously resonated in the wrong way and too much with him. And I think that's a thing that makes people nervous with art, though. Is that if you make something edgy and kind of like speaks to a certain thing, then isn't somebody going to get triggered? Isn't somebody going to become like activated in a way?
Right.
And I guess that's possible. But do you want to live in a world where we
Well,
don't?
it happens.
Because it happens once in a while.
Well, natural born killers.
Natural born killers,
a
you
guy
know what I mean?
went there was.
The guy in Aurora, Colorado, like he
right.
claimed it was because of fucking Joker or whatever. He was a Joker fan, like, you know what I mean? That guy back in the days from the Dark Knight release. So it's like, do you want to live like that's going to happen? And you got to remember that's going to be a small number. But it's like saying, are we going to drive cars despite the fact that they crash? You know what I mean? Or like, because otherwise, what's the thing? It's like the alternative is to not have art and stuff that pushes boundaries.
Well, I guess from my experience, because I'm on Facebook there, and I communicate with people on there. And when you go through the feed, it's just negative after negative. Oh. And the fact is that I made a post about Joker. Yeah, and I said, listen, I got my tickets already. I'm ready to go.
I saw it, and
but I told people that maybe you should see the film first, before you start complaining. What I find interesting is that the people, and there's a handful of them that are on Facebook.
Oh yeah,
and on my friends list.
Me too.
Complaining all fucking month that didn't even have the balls to fucking
go see it.
No, have the balls to even respond.
Oh, okay.
Because it's to me, because it didn't fit their negative realm.
Well, that's the thing too, and it's a hard argument to kind of really have a comeback.
But that's what I'm trying to say. Because if I'm over there, I'm saying, well, listen, you know what? All right, I'm in it, so I just want everyone to know that just because I'm in it doesn't mean I have a dog in the fight.
Right.
I was excited about this for months. Yes. You know what I mean? But you're going over there and you're saying this is going to suck. This is, I don't know how I'm going to feel. I'm not expecting much. Fuck this. And that and the other thing. And I feel like, what, maybe I hadn't seen the movie at that point either. Yeah. But I said, listen, instead of like blowing over the whole Scorsese energy that's around it. Yeah. Maybe it's something you should be sinking your teeth into when you watch that trailer and say, oh, you know something? Well, maybe that is something you shouldn't be scooping under the fucking rug. Yeah. You should be embracing that a little bit more and go see the film.
Well, it's like saying, well, here's the thing. It's like, people don't really, we're all picky and choosy with this, but people a lot of times lock up on a thing and they don't give it a proper chance, and that comes down to a lot of things. But it's a pre-based bias. You form a bias, like what this is, who that guy is, that person, what that store does, like you know what I mean. Like you make these biases where like that thing is, I'm not doing it.
I just feel that we're living in a guilty until proven innocent kind of a world here a little bit.
We always have.
Well, yeah, but it's not. But you're already. Yeah. It's like you're already shit until you prove to me you're not shit. Yeah. In a sense. And I guess it borders on a lot of negativity that I'm just kind of sick and tired of seeing and hearing.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing.
In a amplified.
Yeah. Look, I always say this: if you told me you had seen it and then had some problems with it, fine. You know what I mean? That's kind of my thing is like, look, like nothing like, I've been surprised quite a few times. I was not necessarily surprised when I saw this. Like this kind of hits all the things I thought it was going to do. I don't really think it like surprised me in any major way. Like, oh, wow, really didn't see like that coming. Right. Like everything feels right. You know what I mean? It doesn't rewrite the book. It doesn't become something huger. You know what I mean? Right. But it's a film. It's a movie. You know what I mean? Like, all right, if you want to dismiss it, fine. But don't ballyhoo about it. Yeah. Because that's what it comes down to, too, right? It's like, if you have nothing good to say, I get it. Don't say anything at all isn't always true. If you have nothing good to say, but you have a valid experience to base that on, then fine. If you want to stand on the sidelines and tell me about anything, but you really don't know, right? Because you didn't experience it, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to tell you about some other culture because I never fucking lived it, and I'd be out of line for doing it. No, you know what I mean? Like, right? So, like, don't tell me about a movie you haven't seen, at least given a fair shot. Right. Well, that's just it. That's what I'm saying, because it's all stuff that hasn't come out yet. Yeah. And it's like, all right, well, maybe you need to like, It's one of these
holster.
It's one of these human traits that's really kind of fucking shitty in the end, because it's like, look, granted. Maybe from the outset you can say it's not for you. You know what I mean?
What I will say,
and that's fine. From like looking at the trailer and kind of getting a gist from the trailer, you can say, "Look, I don't know. I feel like I don't know what that is. It doesn't look too great to me. It's not my cup of tea." Then that's kind of fair. That's fine. But if you're gonna be like,
that's not what they're saying, though,
right?
And
exactly,
you know that
exactly. That's kind of what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're not kind of. There are people who aren't just doing that. There are people who are doing that, but then there are other people who are kind of like making a bigger deal about it without having seen it. And you know what? It would only serve your argument if you saw it and then had points of things you could probably point to and say, this is the problem, or that's my problem, or
And
you know what I mean? But
people
otherwise,
are afraid of seeing it and being wrong.
well, there's that, and I think that goes to also your point about the post too, where it's like, you put out a post where it's like, hey everybody, go see it before you say something about it, and then suddenly the person that wants to say something about it but hasn't seen it is kind of like, fuck. Like you got him. Like that's a preemptive strike.
I know. The thing is
but I get it.
As open mouthed as I am, I don't go ahead.
Yeah.
And even if I'm reserved in it.
Yeah.
Because I feel there's a little too much. That's probably why people go into movies with a negative vibe already.
Well, here's the thing. Like, I mean, we're going in with something nowadays because it's rare that anybody goes in blind or clean. Aside for like the mom who brings her 3 kids to the Joker because like she genuinely didn't know, I guess, or just was completely clueless.
But that's
Those people
what professional
exist.
critics do. They neutralize themselves.
Yeah.
And they go into this. I mean, now I get it. If you're going into Remains of the Day, you're not going to expect fucking Maniac.
Yeah. Well,
you know what I mean?
You know what I mean. Well, that's what I'm saying.
But there is a certain expectation you're going in, but you're still supposed to go in there with zero yourself out and say, all right, what are you giving me as a film critic?
Well, as I think that's the thing people should be doing as a film goer, and I think that they don't. I think that they go
and
in
I agree with that.
With a lot of preconceived notions. I'm guilty of it too. Quite often, it's hard to separate.
So
that.
am I.
It's hard to separate that.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's hard to say like I got certain impressions from the trailers or what I know of this movie. All right,
not too much. I usually that's probably why.
Yeah.
I also stay away from things I know I'm not gonna like.
Well, that's me too.
And I feel like from that level, that's probably why I embrace more than I should.
Jay, what did you think of Downton Abbey?
What? Who's she?
Downtown who? Downtown Abbey Brown?
Right. Exactly.
All right.
Well, for me, it's a stash. I mean, I think I explained myself why. I think it's all relatively fair. I don't think you, to me, it's also up my alley, as you know. Me as a guy that likes
as much as
harder edge.
As much as you just said, there are movies I won't see because I know they're not for me. There are movies like you've got to see because they're for you, and I feel like that too for some things. You know what I mean? This is good for you. This is a where would you out of 10? What would you give it?
Oh, full 10.
Full 10.
I'm full in.
10.
I really hope. I really enjoyed that script.
Yeah.
I feel that Todd Phillips kind of gave us a little bit of a game changer in a way, especially with his direction because he really did a really nice job with it. But I do feel with that Phoenix needs to be nominated for this because it is a bravura performance and one that I won't forget for a very long time.
Yeah, I think it's a solid performance. I think that the movie,
I know you won't forget it.
No, definitely won't. I think it's a thing where like it's there's a certain amount of the Joker there that I really that works for me like aesthetically. I think it's like visually, like it's a good design on Joker and stuff like that.
We didn't even get into that.
We didn't really get into that too much. It's quite the throwback outfit.
What did you think
on the makeup?
But I thought it fit that persona.
Well, that's the thing. What's great about that does work on this is that it does stay in its pocket and for the visuals, like the look, the styles and stuff like that, it all comes together really well. This orangey brown suit that he's got and the makeup that he particularly does, it's all great. It gives it, and it's much like the rest of this movie. It's the Joker, but not really Joker quite exactly. You know what I mean? It's its own thing, and so
it's a Joker, not the Joker.
Fair enough. It's exactly. It's a Joker. It's not the Joker, because what is the Joker anyway?
Actually, you can probably argue that with every Joker.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. That's what I'm saying. Like, what is the Joker? Each one is so different to a degree. So
Said about anything really.
Yeah. Look, you gave it a 10. I got to give it like a 7 or an 8. Yeah. I'll give it a 7.5. That kind of thing.
Will you watch this again?
I might. I mean,
with a different mindset.
Well, I did come out of it saying that, like, I think what might be best for me is if I do give it a rewatch, because I kind of wanted to just see how some things kind of like the timeline and what happened when, just a little bit of, because like when he stops taking the meds, like what kind of happened, because it's a little bit of a blur of what happens when near the middle there. Or just before the middle. So like when he stops taking the meds, what starts happening? What does, like, is there more there that now that I have the whole story in total in a way, like, you know what I mean? Is there a little bit more to it that a second viewing wouldn't hurt, Did
the audience...
Oh, I got to tell you, we were with like an early crowd. There was not a lot of people there.
Oh, okay. Because I was in a packed house.
Yeah.
And when he bashes the guy's head into the wall and the little small guy is there,
people
are laughing their asses
off. Yeah.
But in a way, like, almost like it was kind of like, holy fuck.
No, he kills that. No, he kills that guy, right?
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question. Maybe it was just me. When the ambulance hits the cop car near the end that he's in, and the guy gets out, did you think it was going to be that same guy?
No.
I mean, because I was like,
I was there for that scene, so I kind of knew.
Okay, yeah. For me, I think they wanted you to kind of wonder that for a second, right? Because he's like the same frame as that guy, and he's got like this weird kind of gait, this kind of weird movement a little bit. And, I think they wanted you to think just for a second, at least I did, like, oh, maybe it is that big guy. Maybe he didn't kill him. Maybe that was like a false scene as well,
No, because I think that at the end of the final edit, I think what is a dream, and what you see is real.
And that was a thing I wanted more of, actually.
You want more closure.
Well, a little more closure, but I actually wanted, like, when he starts to remember, like, it seems like only the stuff with the girl was, like, fake, like actual hard like moments and memories and things that we saw that didn't happen the way we saw them. And I was like, I wanted like more of that. Like, why was it only pertain to the girl? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
because everything else was a negative descend for him.
Yeah, and I think that's why the medication thing for me too. Whereas, like, I think once he's off the medication, that starts to happen more. And they never know. They might have had more of that in play, but they pulled it out because of getting too confusing or something, maybe. But I kind of was wondering, like, well, why was it just limited to the girl? Wouldn't that kind of be happening in other aspects of his waking life?
Except for the Murray Franklin thing in the beginning.
Well, like we said, like, you go from him into this thing, you kind of know, oh, this might be in his head. And then we cut back to him after the moment, and we know that it's in his head. It's not shown. It's not like an interaction. Like, it's a Fight Club thing they do.
Yeah.
Where it's a full-on interaction, and then we see the other real version of that same scene. Like, that's a different mechanic than the thing in the beginning. But his daydreaminess, sure. Like, maybe, like, as he's medicated, that's all it is. But when he's not medicated, he gets these much more... like a different animal type of moments where, like, he's thinks he's talking to someone. Yeah. He's not just imagining that he's talking to that girl, that he's interacting with her. Like, in those moments, he believes he is. Like, that's what we're supposed to come away with that. Part of his illness is that, like, oh, no, he thought he was talking to her.
See, but I think there's things in there, like when he believes he's on the show.
Yeah.
And he's talking to no one.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Which I thought gave the vibe that, all right, well, this is really going on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, this is really happening.
See, this is why it needs a little bit of another rewatch.
Yeah, like, I feel like if I would love to hear a commentary by Todd Phillips.
Well, I will say there's a couple of podcasts right now where Real Blend, which is from cinemablend.com, they have Joaquin Phoenix on. I haven't gotten up to the part where they interview him because they're talking about recent, like, pop news stuff. But they have like a half an hour with him where they talk about specifically like the ending and stuff like that. So you got to kind of keep your eye out for that. I think the Empire podcast from Empire Magazine, I think they have him also this week or so. So if people are looking for like a better podcast, I guess.
I'll tell a little Joker story on set.
Okay.
Did I speak to Joaquin and Todd Phillips? The answer is yes.
Oh.
Very briefly. Told you this story when it happened. I took a piece of direction personally from Todd Phillips.
Nice. Well, nice.
Basically what it was is because Joaquin was very into character. And he was talking with Todd Phillips a lot. We were on the train.
Right.
So when when the cops are chasing him from train to train, I was in a shot. Like the camera, like when we were ready to go, the camera's right there.
Yeah.
And but he had asked me, "Is it okay if I shove you?"
Right.
You know what I mean, so because I'm running from the cops.
Yeah.
It's okay if I shove you.
Yeah.
Right. And I said, okay.
Yeah.
Now in my mind, I'm like, well, I'm twice you, pal. you know.
So I'll be doing some acting.
He goes, and he was a gentleman.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He just said, okay, thank you. And then when I stood there, the camera person gave me a piece of direction. He says, well, when we yell background, do this. And then Todd Phillips says, he's told me, he goes, you know something? When he comes and shoves you, go that way.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that was my little...
That's your interaction?
That's my interaction with the big guys. But it was 7 days I'll never forget.
Oh, I'm sure.
I'm sure. And I'm very proud. Now, this is where I am going to come into play. I'm proud to be part of it.
Oh, I'm sure you are.
This is, to me, I feel it's something special. It's a movie I know that won't go away.
Oh, no.
For a very, very long time.
It'll always be a conversation piece.
I mean, I would kill to see a Todd Phillips Batman flick in this tone. I would love it. You know what I mean? They certainly leave things open-ended here, too. That's another thing.
And they're ambiguous with the year, I think, too.
81.
Oh, is it 81? They locked that down?
Yep.
All right, so if it's 81...
I know, because I wore those fucking Bostonians from fucking 81. Those shoes were horrible.
If it's 81,
it is 81.
And now it's like 2020, basically, it's quite the gap in time.
I will say this. I'm gonna go a little fan theory here.
Okay.
Which I don't usually do or like, and get annoyed when it happens.
Right, but
I was told
Yeah.
that the Robert Pattinson Batman film was going to be set in the 90s, which makes that anywhere from 9 to 16 years.
Yeah.
Or 9 to 18 years.
Not to say, I don't want to connect into this, but like I don't know if I want a Batman movie from in the 90s.
Well, that's what they said. They're doing it like from the 90s, and the only sense I can make of that is because they might want to tie it into this for some reason. That's the only way it can.
Hey, even if they don't do it directly, it lines up.
But that's the only theory I have.
Yeah.
Things are lining up a little too much. From that rumor, the fact that it is coming, and the shot of Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
At the very end before the last scene. Remember?
What was he doing?
When he's standing there with his parents.
When they're dead. Yeah.
And it's a dramatic zoom in.
Oh, yeah. It's like, hey, we did the thing with the pearls. Don't forget we did the pearls.
So, I'm looking forward to seeing it again.
All right. Very good. That's it. That's going to wrap this up. People, you can find Uncle Jay on Twitter at Uncle Jay's Thing.
Yeah,
that's his Twitter handle.
Haven't been active on it, but...
It's all good. It's all good, baby. They love you.
Go see the Joker.
Go see the Joker.
Judge for yourself.
Judge for yourself, if you haven't already. And then keep your ears peeled. This podcast will be back.
Don't bring the kids.
Don't bring the kids. Don't bring the kids to this podcast either. It will be different. but not by too much. As always, support us on Patreon, patreon.com/Wicked Theory, where you can hear Ed Bonds with Bill. Ed forces me to watch James Bond movies against my better judgment. I don't hate him for it, but sometimes I do. And also check out the DC TV Report with Ed and Sarah. They're going to have their own Joker breakdown. You can check that out, get another angle on all this. And then, hey, support your local comic shop, because I don't have one anymore, and I'm sad about it. But support yours. Keep them in business, folks, because you'll be sad when they're gone. That's it. Join me back here November 11th. Something in between may happen, but don't bet on it. You never know. And as always, I don't have a sign-off.
Toodaloo.
There you go. Toodaloo. 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 Toodaloo.